Monday, July 13th, 2020. It's approximately 1 p.m. So before we begin, if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we're going to have our pet of the week. Jennifer Martinez from our communications office. Sorry.
I'm Jennifer with the city's communications office, and I'm going to introduce you to Olivia. Are you able to see Olivia?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. She's almost 2 years old. She is energetic, she's affectionate, and she has lots of love to give. Olivia is perfect for any active family. You can lie poolside and soak up the vitamin D. And Olivia will also be with you if you're interested in going jogging or if you want to just hang out with her during the summer. She's a perfect pet if you are interested. Okay. Animal Service Center hours of operation are Monday through Friday, noon to 6 p.m., and on Saturday and Sunday, noon to 5 p.m. Again, you will be asked to call ahead and make an appointment. That number is 382-0018. And right now, all of the offsite adoption events are canceled until further notice. And that is, again, because of the limitations at the Animal Service Center. If you're interested in adopting, the cost is $25. You can go to ascmv.org/adoptions to see all of the animals that are available. If there's any time to talk to you about summer weather and pets, this week would be the week. So we're having temperatures anywhere from 105 and I think up to 107 I saw this week. Never leave pets outside for long periods of time. Make sure you provide water and shade, keep them from resting on concrete, groom them regularly, exercise when it's cooler, and provide cool or frozen treats. And the communications office wants to provide tips for COVID-19. And we do have a dashboard that you can link to from our website. On the bottom, you can see COVID-19loscruces.com. And there you can link to the dashboard. And what you're going to find there is when you go to that website, along the left-hand side, there's a blue bar. And I am going to circle that so you can see exactly where you need to click to get some of this information. You'll see an interactive map with data from the Department of Health that's case by case and county and zip code, and you can see the total number of deaths, the total tests performed throughout the state, hospitalizations, other kinds of information that you might be interested in finding. And there's also data from Johns Hopkins University and other tips that will help you to stay healthy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Adrian, Councilor Flores has texted me that she doesn't have audio, so I don't know if that's something with her computer or if that's something that your team could look at. I'd appreciate that. Okay, so we have 3 items on the agenda. First one is economic development, building local wealth. I know it was advertised as walls, so I don't know if we got a lot of interest from our home builders and contractors, but the actual title should be building local wealth. And that's something there that a while back, Councilor Vasquez had made a comment how he wanted to, he liked the fact that we're adding jobs in our community, but that he wanted to see about how local wealth creation could come about. And so if you recall, a couple months ago, we had a flash assessment by a community economics laboratory out of Albuquerque and also with Mavita. And then we heard the difference about what they call economic-based jobs, where salaries are paid for by money from outside the region. And then what they call service center jobs, salaries derived from the local exchange of goods and services. And so this is kind of following the concerns or the comments that Councilor Vasquez had. And so we're fortunate to have with us today is Michael Schuman, economist, attorney, and leader in the development of local strong economies. He's performed economic development analysis for states, local governments, and businesses throughout North America. And he's the author of, among many other books, one called The Local Economy Solution and Local Dollars, Local Cents, How to Shift Your Money from Wall Street to Main Street. So also joining Mr. Schuman, and we have some guests, the CEO of the Greater Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce, Debbie Moore, the CEO of the Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce, and future State Senator Carrie Hamblin, my friend and economic mentor, NMSU, Professor Emeritus of Economics, Dr. Jim Peach, former Las Cruces City Councilor and Mayor Pro Tem Emerita Sharon Thomas, or Dr. Sharon Thomas. And so with that, Mr. Schuman, I appreciate you being with us here today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for that kind introduction. And I am going to put up some slides right now that hopefully people will be able to see. Just give me a second. There we go. And can everyone see the right title of this? Rebooting the Las Cruces Economy Post-COVID, a New Approach to Economic Development. And this is definitely a presentation about how to build wealth, not how to build walls. In fact, walls are contrary to what we're trying to achieve, even though local economic development should first and foremost focus on local business. As I understand it, you received a fairly conventional presentation about how economic development works not so long ago. And I decided to start what I want to share with you by pulling out one of the main slides from that you heard about the economic base theory. And as was explained in the introduction, the conventional story of economic development is that there are some jobs, some businesses that bring in outside money. And outside money is what drives the economy, because money that is spent on local stuff is simply recirculating and not building any new wealth. And the additional part of that story is that services are part of the local recirculation of money, and manufacturing, the production of goods, is the good stuff. That's the stuff that builds wealth. And there's one other piece of this theory that is pretty integral, and that is that if you believe that manufacturing, that exports, is the key to economic development, you're going to spend a lot of your time in economic development trying to attract outside manufacturers. So for much of economic development, attracting companies through incentives, which are often expensive and counterproductive, is what people do. Now, what I want to suggest is that all of the elements of this story actually are not true. They've all been pretty widely disproven. There is a myth about new money, there's a myth about base jobs, and there's a myth about the efficacy of corporate attraction. Let's talk first about the myth of new money. So again, the argument is that when you sell $1 of stuff to the outside world, that is bringing new money to the community. And that, in fact, when you are just doing something internal to your economy, no new dollars are coming in. But what is ignored in this analysis is that, in point of fact, you're constantly importing stuff as well. And every local transaction actually substitutes for an import, which means you're gaining $1 from a local sale. So what's the difference between $1 gained from a local sale, because you're not importing $1 of stuff, and $1 earned from exports? And the answer is there is no difference whatsoever. And this is a widely accepted understanding by economists across the political spectrum. Consequently, one of the important things that people need to do when thinking about economic development is not just focus on your strengths, but focus on your weaknesses. And one of the things that I've done for about 50 jurisdictions around the country, including Santa Fe County, is a leakage analysis. This particular analysis, which I was part of a team that did 2 years ago called Pollinating Prosperity, we basically analyzed what would be the consequences if the residents of Santa Fe County shifted 10% of their spending from
Hello, this is Yvonne.
Yes. From non-local goods to local goods and services. And we calculated that this 10% shift would create 4,600 new jobs, paying $214 million and generate $35 million in new state and local taxes. A further part of the myth of base businesses is the belief that manufacturing jobs are special because they pay higher wages. But as you can see by the most recent Department of Labor average wages from June 2020, manufacturing and service jobs are pretty close in what their pay is on a weekly basis. And there are plenty of services, professional services, financial services, and information services that pay significantly more than manufacturing. So the theory is wrong, and in fact, you can gain more wealth with properly chosen, properly structured service jobs. The final myth is about corporate attraction, and this woman here is named Ann Markison. She's a professor at the University of Minnesota. She put out one of the best books evaluating corporate attraction. She had a team of about 24 people. Some of them support corporate attraction, some of them were skeptical, and her conclusion from all of the research they put together in this study is that incentive competition is on the rise. It is costly, generally inefficient, and often ineffective for winning regions. Now, clearly, it's always ineffective for losing regions. But the thing that I would change in Ann's conclusion is the often. Because when you look at the opportunity costs of corporate attraction, it's almost always ineffective. And we could see from the most recent escapades of Amazon trying to find its H2Q headquarters, which nearly 300 communities across the United States bid for the privilege of having the world's wealthiest corporation build a plant there, and many jurisdictions were offering hundreds of thousands of dollars per job. And what none of the jurisdictions paid attention to is what they could get from local jobs that were significantly cheaper. The guy on the right of this picture is an economic developer in Appalachian, West Virginia, named Lou Stein. And I interviewed Lou Stein a few years ago and discovered that he was producing jobs in Appalachian, West Virginia, 300 to 500 per year for not several $100,000 per job, but for about $500 per job. And how did he do this? Well, he asked people who were looking to start businesses to come to meetings, and he introduced them to bankers, and he improved their business plans. And he also worked with existing businesses and asked them something that the existing economic development agency in West Virginia was not asking, which is, how can we help? And often by asking the simplest questions to figure out how to help existing local businesses and entrepreneurs, you can perform economic development more effectively and more inexpensively. And the lessons from Lou Stein really have led me to 3 alternative rules for local prosperity. The first is that we need to maximize the percentage of jobs in locally owned business. The second is that we need to maximize the local diversity of the economy. So someone is not on mute. And then the third is to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So let me talk briefly about each of these. Rule 1, maximizing local ownership. This is a study that was done in British Columbia in 2013, comparing the impact of $1 spent on independent restaurants and retailers versus chain restaurants and retailers. And what it found is that $1 spent in independent restaurants and retailers led to about 47 cents recirculating in the British Columbian economy, whereas $1 spent in a chain restaurant and retailer was about 18 cents. So roughly speaking, Every time a British Columbian resident mindfully spends $1 at a locally owned restaurant or retailer, the province enjoys 2.5 times the job effects, 2.5 times the income and wealth effects, 2.5 times the tax collections, 2.5 times the charitable contributions. It's not a small bit of difference. And there have been about 24 of these studies done over the last 20 years, comparing either two businesses or two industries, one locally owned, one not, and they have all shown that the locally owned entities generate 2 to 4 times the jobs and other economic development impacts. The reason is that the local business, because of its relationships, spends more of its money locally. But you don't have to take my word for this.
Michael, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
One of the counselors asked if you could go back, not this, the slide before last.
Yes, I happy to do this. I wasn't sure what the format was. Yep.
Great. Okay, go ahead.
Actually, one more.
Oh, one more.
One more. Okay, there.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I even took a picture. I even took a picture of that too. So.
Okay, and hopefully you've all received copies of the slides via PDF. Okay. So, did you have a question about this slide?
No, this is just where the background noise was happening, so I didn't totally catch what you were saying on this one.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to go through each of these again more methodically. All right. So let's skip back to here. And this is a study from the Harvard Business Review in the summer of 2010. It's a regression analysis of communities across the United States. And what it shows is that in those communities with the highest density of locally owned business, there is the highest per capita job growth rate. But not just that, but this study from the Federal Reserve of Atlanta in August of 2013 did a regression analysis of counties across the United States and found that in those counties with the highest density of locally owned business, there is the highest per capita income growth rate. So in other words, if you want to reduce poverty, raise social equality, local businesses are your best ticket for doing so. So the second rule says that there's a real advantage to diversifying your economy. And this really goes against the grain of a lot of traditional economic development that says, find one or two strengths, build on those, and import everything else. This, by the way, is a slide from a study that I helped a group in France put together for the island of Mauritius called Local is Beautiful, where we proposed a whole series of activities to help diversify the Mauritius economy. But I want to give you an example of import substitution and diversification of an economy in a very specific example from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So Ann Arbor, Michigan is a university town. And this is the story of a delicatessen there called Zingerman's. Very successful in its first 10 years, but they had a problem, which is they knew they had to grow or they were going to lose their best managers. So their option was they could become a chain, like, say, Schlotsky's Deli, or they could try to enact some other strategy. So they decided, you know what, we don't want to grow wide because we don't want to be in airplanes all the time and we're afraid about losing quality control. So they said, we are going to try to grow deep. So they looked systematically at things coming into the deli and out of the deli and decided they were going to build new businesses around it. So, for example, they serve sandwiches on bread. So they created a bakehouse. They serve coffee, so they created a coffee roasting company. They serve ice cream and cheese, so they created a creamery. And then looking at things coming out of the deli, they had good food, so they created another sit-down restaurant called the Roadhouse. They had great cakes, so they created a mail order cake business. They had great customer service, so they created a training entity called Zing Train. So in all, Zingerman's is now about a dozen independently owned businesses that co-license the brand, and collectively they are responsible for 600 jobs in Ann Arbor that generate, 65 million dollars per year. And I want to point out that this in miniature is what economic development should look like. It doesn't have to start with an exotic high-tech entity or a high manufacturing entity, although in a way Zingerman's does do manufacturing with its cakes, and it also has a candy manufacturer that we haven't talked about. But more significantly, what Zingerman's has done is that it has substituted things on the input side, and then it has engaged in value adding on the output side, and has done this first and foremost around local markets, knowing that ultimately through their mail order catalog and through their Zing Train, they reach regional and national markets as well. And this approach to economic development that emphasizes diversification and self-reliance is certainly smarter in an era of COVID. We all know that resilience is where communities are going to receive great payoff. And those communities that worked hard over the last 10 years to localize more of their food system have done better during this pandemic. Rule number 3 is to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And what I mean by an entrepreneurial ecosystem is being attentive to what I call 6 Ps of an entrepreneurial ecosystem: planning, people, partners, purchasing, and policymaking. And planning means identifying leaks in your economy, all the places where people living in your community are unnecessarily buying outside goods and services, and then identifying what businesses can plug those leaks. People, how do you nurture a new generation of entrepreneurs that can lead these leak plugging businesses? Partners, how do we get businesses to collaborate together so they're more effective as a team than they would be on their own? Purchasing, how can you spearhead buy local or think local first campaigns? And policy making, how do you create a level playing field for your local businesses? I want to give you just a quick example of what a policy initiative from you in Las Cruces might look like in each of these categories. And I am mindful that the stress of COVID means that your tax dollars are diminished, and the necessity of coming up with low-cost stimulus solutions is essential. So in terms of a planning initiative, I would say do a leakage analysis, really understand where the money is leaving the economy, and come up with a sophisticated analysis like Santa Fe County did about how to plug those leaks with new or expanded businesses. People. There's talk about creating and expanding incubators in Las Cruces. I would encourage you to look at models of incubators that are self-financing. This guy here is named Michael Looney Libes. He runs an incubator in Seattle called Fledge. When he is done incubating his businesses, he takes a 5% ownership stake in the company. And people have the opportunity to buy back that ownership stake through a royalty agreement on sales. But in this way, he earns back the money that pays for the next round of incubation. And honestly, this is the way almost all economic development programs should be structured. If you're giving benefits to businesses and they do in fact benefit, they should pay back so that others can follow them. Partners. Partners, again, is local businesses working together that are more effective as a team. Not so far from you in Tucson, Arizona, there is an organization called Tucson Originals, a group of about 50 local food businesses in Tucson that collectively buy foodstuffs, kitchen equipment, and dishes. And buying these things in bulk together brings down their input costs and makes them all more competitive. Purchasing. So this guy here is a premier in a Canadian province of New Brunswick. And I put his picture here because he has been extremely innovative in reshaping the procurement patterns of New Brunswick. And we can talk more about this in Q&A, but the basic argument I would make is that the more you can procure public goods and services from local vendors and do so in a cost-effective way, the more stimulus you're going to get in your economy. And there are ways of tweaking your procurement system that are completely legal, but also increase the probability of local businesses being selected that you might consider. The last thing that I want to mention is around purse or capital initiatives. There is a robust and expanding movement in the country around local reinvestment, people moving their money from Wall Street to Main Street. You could model this by moving your city's banking into local banks and credit unions, as the cities of Tucson and Phoenix have done. You can educate people in your community how to engage in crowdfunding, that is, how to help businesses go to national crowdfunding sites and how to help local investors find those businesses. You might list all the companies in your jurisdiction that are looking for capital and put that list on your website so that people in the community looking to put money into local businesses might do so. And you might even create, as New Brunswick has and as the state of Michigan is now considering doing, a local investment tax credit for every dollar of people's taxation. If they've spent $1 on a local investment, they might get, say, 25, 30, 40 cents off their taxes. In New Brunswick, this has been an extremely effective way of mobilizing the population to put millions of dollars into local businesses. The last point that I will just make before we open it up to questions and answers is that this stuff requires focus. And there may be some of you that are thinking, well, you know, these are neat ideas, but let's do the traditional attraction stuff and this. And what my counter argument is you don't have the resources and you don't have the time. And every dollar you spend chasing an outside company and likely losing the chase is a dollar that's unavailable for these low-cost initiatives. And every hour of a civil servant's time that is spent in this ludicrous outside attraction game is an hour that's unavailable for nurturing local businesses that already have made a commitment to your community long term. So let me stop there and open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Schuman. Let's see if we have, well, let's start off with Councillor Vasquez, since he's the impetus for why we did this. Councillor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Schuman. Really appreciate your presentation. So much confirmation bias for me included in your presentation, so thank you. The reason I say that is, you know, I've been talking for a long time, I think, about the power of wealth building opportunities in our local community being just as important as bringing economic-based dollars into our community, because in particular for the families here that could benefit from better high-paying jobs, the argument in terms of bringing new economic dollars to help support those jobs versus redistributing existing wealth in our community so that we have folks that are in lower tiers of the economy that actually have better opportunities, that helps everybody, because then they're able to buy a house, then they're able to, you know, get the credit to purchase other goods, perhaps start their own business. And so it's very much a social justice issue in addition to an economic building issue when it comes to building local wealth. And so, so it seems like there's some wonderful opportunities here to do that. Part of, I guess, the formula of how I see this working out is breaking down the barriers for the entry to business ownership. And so that's one of the things that I struggle with in terms of what levers can we pull on the policy end of things to really revamp what our local entrepreneurial community looks like. And so if you go to a place like the farmer's market here in Las Cruces on a Saturday or a Wednesday, or even the flea market, Big Daddy's Flea Market, and you see all these aspiring entrepreneurs who are reselling goods, who are, you know, creating things in their home, whether it's jewelry, who are selling services, some selling produce, all these wonderful local things that people from the outside of town come to buy, right? Because they want to get that local flavor. There's so much opportunity, I think, within that group of entrepreneurs to actually get brick and mortar locations, or, you know, to expand somehow their reach or their potential to grow their business. How do we do that? Well, you know, I've tried to look at things like our existing zoning regulations and our zoning code. You know, there's certain things that prevent us from developing infill opportunities in our city. For example, like a shipping container coffee house, right? That potentially is a lot cheaper than leasing some expensive, you know, locale in a brand new shopping center. But if we don't have the adequate parking spaces, if we don't have the adequate zoning requirements to open and establish business that way, we're not able to provide that opportunity. I think about residential housing as well as doubling as a small business, right? Maybe within a certain district, so that people who are actually already paying a lease, paying a mortgage, can turn, you know, a studio of theirs into an actual retail walk-in, you know, art gallery or bike shop or shoe repair business. Currently, we can't do that with our existing zoning code. So I'm wondering if you have any ideas in terms of what are some low-hanging fruit in terms of policy ideas or initiatives that helps break down those barriers to local business ownership that contributes to that entrepreneurial culture that I think we really need here.
Yeah, so those are all really good suggestions that you've made already in identifying the zoning code. So the last big study that I just finished for a community is Riverside, California, which has about 300,000 people, and I'd be happy to share with you a bunch of the recommendations that I have in there, because they too were struggling around entry of people into entrepreneurship. So I'll just mention, you know, say two of the issues besides zoning that I think are real. So one is capital. And I think, you know, through some of the things that I mentioned, if you make it cheaper and easier for people to do crowdfunding and to find local investors in their business, and you list those businesses on the city's website, and you educate the population and incentivize the population to invest in those businesses, boy, will that make a huge difference. And then the second thing is the costs of licensing, and sometimes it's zoning fees. I don't know exactly what people would face in Las Cruces, but this was really big in Riverside. And one of the ideas we came up with was to develop a fund that was run by the city, but in fact would have money that was invested by residents, and that's certainly something that's possible that a city can do, and use that money as a way of fronting the fees for businesses that meet certain criteria. So maybe you require that they have a business plan, maybe they're run by, you know, people of color or women to try to raise social equity, but whatever it is, you cover those costs up front so that the business is responsible for it later on if they succeed. And I think getting businesses past that initial hump could be very helpful in getting things moving.
Thank you, Mr. Schuman. That's super helpful. I do just want to ask one more question before passing it off to my colleagues and follow up with some thoughts later. But one particular example that comes to mind in terms of developing maybe a pilot, local business growth policy is we have the redevelopment of an area in the city that has a lot of commercial vacancies and has over the last several years, and it's been hard to fill because once a building goes into disrepair, others follow and businesses leave, and it becomes all of a sudden not a very attractive place for a business person. And so that's the El Paseo corridor, which we've now added the South Solano area to in terms of the planning. But thinking about what type of overlay we could include that would promote the growth of small business, in addition to a redevelopment designation, whatever we end up doing there. But you talked about incentives and chasing the big companies, and we have another situation where we're talking about something similar with a large developer. But locally, in terms of incentives, thinking about something like waiving a business owner's property taxes for the first 2 years if they choose to relocate or open within this district, or something we did downtown, which was provide, I think it was up to $20,000 grants for the renovation of their businesses, their facades, or their if they choose to locate downtown. I think that was fairly successful from my understanding. So thinking about some of those things that you incentivize local business with, do you have any ideas or best practices or things that you've seen as to how you help, incentivize local businesses, and does that work?
Yeah, I think it definitely works. And, what you might decide is, what is the amount of tax break that your city can afford in the name of economic development? And then allow a competition. Maybe it's an RFP. And you basically invite all kinds of businesses, local and outside businesses, and say, look, tell me the number of quality jobs that you can provide and what's the lowest price tag for it. And you start with the cheapest ones and work your way up till you've, filled your money. And I guarantee you that if you do that rational process, 99% of your allocations will be on local businesses that meet your goals.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Schuman. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sword.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Schuman, for that presentation. And welcome to Las Cruces here, even if it's a distant Zoom. As you went through all these different points, I kept picking out one or two or three as you went along. And we're kind of doing that already, but there's a lot of stuff you said that we aren't. But overall, when you look at all of this, could you characterize it as being called what some places call economic gardening?
Yeah, economic gardening is a specific movement of communities that are emphasizing the nurturing of local business. The one thing that economic gardening focused on that I might not affiliate with, so that means I'm sort of 80% in alignment with them, is they were very much after the idea of gazelles, that there exist businesses with, say, 10 to 20 employees, early stage, that have spectacular growth, and you should really focus on those businesses. I'm not so sold on the gazelle theory, and I feel like identifying gazelles in advance is very risky and dangerous business. But I do think that, broadly, yes, focusing your resources and intention on the entrepreneurs who've already made a commitment to your community is a great starting place.
I see. I don't know if the rest of the council knows this, but we've been talking about this for 10 years. I was first introduced by former city councilor and mayor pro tem Sharon Thomas. I was hoping we would continue with that and continue now in the future, doing some of the things, or as many of the things as you're suggesting we can do. So very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. And I think Today's business environment, I think we're going to have to actually put a lot more emphasis on economic gardening to keep those that are currently here, keep them viable, help them out the best we can.
Agreed.
We've got Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Schuman. I appreciate the comments and questions of my fellow counselors, specifically Gabe. Those were sort of all the things I wanted to say, but with just an emphasis. A couple of years ago, Dell came and helped sponsor the WE conference, and they did these small sort of, the name is escaping me at this point, but where groups of us would sit with a question and then determine, okay, what is that going to look like in economic development? And the group that I was in happened to win the exercise, if you will. And so we've been getting a little bit of technical assistance from Dwell. And the thing we were promoting and that I'm most interested in is it's a women's accelerator program using a time banking model. And Dr. Martinez has sat in on a few of our presentations, more specifically about 9 months ago at New Mexico State University with the folks there that specifically address economic development. And so since then, I've brought groups of people together to sort of talk about what you would see this, how would we envision, and more specifically, women who are in poverty, who are struggling already, but have this amazing work ethic. And anytime they find themselves, right, needing a certain amount of money, they're doing their hobbies, right? And so how can we focus our time and attention on them to sort of help them sort of sprout the idea? But I think it's very overwhelming to many of them because they're struggling, right? Some of them are have trauma, they're near homeless, their kids are in a childcare setting, right? Be it, if they weren't, they would be basically on the streets, if you will. So I guess my struggle and my frustration is that we have some very amazing business partners and like the chambers that are active and involved. And then we have our economic development. And I hear most often that we're duplicating efforts, right? And how can we sort of identify those folks that we can move the needle a bit? And I know Councilor Bencomo has essentially pushed us and said, listen, our poverty rate is 24%. What can we do to assist folks in getting having a more viable job and housing, if you will. So any suggestions around a fairly new economic development department that's getting themselves up and running and has great relationships, right, with our chambers? But I more often hear that we're doing some duplication. And honestly, I feel government is the safety net. Those are the ones we should be worried about, those folks that are struggling. And I just feel like this accelerator program is a really awesome idea, but to try to bring that to fruition is been difficult. So if you have any feedback on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, I would mention that I've been a lot of my current work is with Native American reservations, primarily in Oregon and Montana, courtesy of the Northwest Area Foundation. And exactly the challenge that you laid out. How do you work with primarily women? And working with very rudimentary skills and bring them into the market. It's a big challenge, and I think part of that challenge is understanding that economic development is not like the next Microsoft. It could be, but it doesn't have to be the next Microsoft. Economic development is getting people who are not gainfully engaged in the economy engaged. And I think simple things that can be done include, organizing retirees who could be really good mentors for these people, putting people together in peer support groups so that they're developing their businesses together and strategizing together, thinking about some of the capital issues that I mentioned, maybe helping these businesses with marketing, joint marketing efforts, and joint procurement efforts. So joint marketing could be done through buy local campaigns. Joint procurement we talked about with something like the Tucson Originals group. So the other thing that you asked is about reducing duplication. And when I work with communities, one of the first things that I do is just gather as much information as I can from everybody about what's going on in economic development. And you quickly then identify where are the holes, where there's some things happening, but there could be more, where there's a lot happening and you don't want to duplicate. So it sounds like maybe you need, to compile a little bit of that information to really see exactly where your resources need to be focused.
Thank you, Mr. Schuman. Those are helpful. I think some of my own frustration is being I'm a doer and a policy level, right? That's different. So we're waiting for folks on the ground to sort of move these things. And so for me, this is has been really helpful presentation. Thank you. I thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Beta-Stubbe.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Schuman, for this great presentation. I did have quite a few questions regarding incentives, and most of those were answered with Councilor Vasquez, so I appreciate that. There is one thing I wanted to touch upon, but I think perhaps I could use help with staff as well. I know that we give money to an entity, Mavita, that helps attract businesses. Now, they're designed, I think, to attract those outside agencies, manufacturing and everything. Do we currently do anything that is comparable with this local side then? Do we give any money in the same way?
Dr. Martinez?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Thank you, Mr. Schuman, for the presentation. Councilor Beta-Stubbe, we are currently setting motion in having pieces to what you just referenced to. We are partnering with Arrowhead Center to run a couple of cohorts of business accelerators focusing on local businesses, just the ones that were described before. We're gonna be doing 30 total local businesses, and that focuses on how they can pivot in this current situation to find new markets, to find new ways to distribute and get their goods and services to new audiences. So that's the first one. We're also, as you know, we're working on the Las Cruces Economic Recovery Board, and one of the areas that we are looking at is how do we approach this recovery through an inclusive framework. I'm curious to hear what Mr. Schuman may have to say about that, and if you have any experience on the topic. We're actually looking for a speaker for our next meeting. And how do we continue to do that? Also with the technical assistance program that we're launching, that also fills in some gaps in financial access, but also in being ready to not only have a loan, but also being able to repay it. But in a formal way, such as we do with Mavita, we do not. So that's something to be considered. And I'm very interested in further hearing the questions and answers on this topic. Thank you very much.
Right.
Dr.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that there's a lot of stuff you could do to help get your priorities right. And one of the things is that you shouldn't be guessing at what the efficacy of the money you give to various kinds of initiatives is. You should set a very clear framework of for any recipient, whether it's a incubator or a course or it is Navita, and say, okay, here's the amount of money. Now tell us what you did with these kinds of jobs and these kinds of businesses, and let's really see how it's doing. Let's compare it every year and adjust the priorities accordingly. I think one of the problems in economic development is that because there's so little follow-up and so little data collection, we don't often know where the priorities belong and where we're getting the greatest efficacy. I do think, I mean, my hunch is, partially through research that I've done, that you will get more bang for your buck the more you localize those spending, more localize the focus of your activities. And even Navita could be encouraged as an established economic development organization with lots of expertise to start shifting more and more of its work to local business development. I would just, encourage being really creative around that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's given me a lot to think about. Thank you, Mayor.
Mhm. Thank you, Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much, Mr. Schuman. That presentation really has my brain on fire, thinking about all of these sort of possibilities, much like Councilor Vasquez. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not crazy. I also think these things, and you're confirming a lot of that, so that's really good. As Mayor Pro Tem Gandara said, though, I consistently am thinking about our 24% poverty rate, right? Because to me, it's not just a number. Those are families, those are people, those are children. And I can't help but think about, economic inequality, the income gap that very clearly exists here in our communities as well. And to me, I think often economic development gets looked at very narrowly. To me, really, at the end of the day, economic development is about improving the quality of life of low to moderate income individuals and families. And often I think you're sort of the second speaker that we've had in the last couple months regarding economic development, particularly as it relates to the pandemic and all of that. And something that I keep feeling like is missing from this conversation is about workers and the huge inequities that exist for workers in all kinds of sectors right now. I think COVID has really exposed a lot of that. How little protections workers have, how little. A conversation, we've had a very tough, intense conversation here locally regarding minimum wage and who frankly deserves the living wages. But I think this whole pandemic has really exposed this idea of healthcare and paid sick leave and all of these things, right? And I just to say, I guess, I feel like often that the conversation about workers is missing. I don't know what you would have to say in regards to that.
So I totally agree with you. And when I'm not running around doing these kinds of talks, I teach a course at a business school in New York called Sustaining Your Mission. And one of the things that I teach my students to do is how to perform for themselves and other businesses they work with what are called B Corp assessments. So B Corps, B stands for beneficial, and it's a whole system for looking comprehensively at the social performance of a business. And that includes its workers, community, governance, the environment, customers. And I think that this really is about economic development. I mean, people, again, there's been this like weird bifurcation in the field where people who care about society do community development, and those who, eat their meat and potatoes and want to attract businesses, that's economic development. But it's all one and the same thing. And what I would argue is many of the forms of high social performance actually have strong economic development impact. So if you pay your workers more, well, that pumps up the local economic multiplier. If your business is buying more local goods and services, that too also is increasing the local economic multiplier. If you're engaging in energy or water efficiency with your business, well, that's preserving your resources for tourism. So we could do this all day, but the point is that social progress and economic progress can and should be one and the same. And one thing I think your city could do is actually identify and reward all of those businesses in Las Cruces that are using any form of social metrics. So there's other ones besides the B Corp metric. And, congratulate them and encourage other businesses to follow. And if they do, I think there will be lots of economic benefits that flow from that.
That's so good to hear. I would love to get more information from you on these social metrics. I think that would be critical moving forward for us, for sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy. I've done 2 studies for local foundations here. So I'm talking to you today from Maryland, and about using this sort of B Corp strategy in Baltimore, and be happy to share those studies with you.
Yeah, I would love that. Something else that I thought was really interesting was, and I can't remember if you said nurture or cultivate, but you were talking about nurturing and cultivating entrepreneurs. So I would also love to hear some of the best strategies you've seen around the country and how to do that. That's really personal to me. My parents are immigrants, and they 5 years ago they became small business owners. They own a little Mexican grocery store, and my dad didn't even finish the 6th grade before he was working, and he has one of the most keen entrepreneurial spirits I have ever seen. And I just wonder how many other people are like that in our communities that just haven't had the support, that push, access to capital, access to information. They just don't know the right people, right? And so how do we best help identify and support those type of individuals? I think particularly folks who come from lower income families, women, people of color, that don't often have access to not even just capital, but just information.
Yes, and to elaborate a point that I made earlier, if your economic development activities, like so many communities, is focusing on, we're going to find the best and the brightest entrepreneurs, like the 10 people who we can rely on are going to build this next Microsoft, and we're going to throw resources to them, tax breaks and free land and good incubators. Well, you're going to get people who are successful and then split your town, and you're not going to get anything positive out of it at all. If instead you focus on those people who you most want to pull up, and who are the entrepreneurs among women and Latinos and other people of color that we can empower, that is what you will see. That's the kind of business you will nurture. So where you prioritize your effort is where entrepreneurship will flourish. It's not the other way around.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. I think what you pay attention to grows, right? I think those were all my questions. I really am. I love this conversation. I think actually, no, one other piece, in one of your answers to Councilor Bates-Stubbe, you were talking about data collection. And that's actually a conversation we also had with Mavita at our last sort of economic development conversation regarding just exactly what does it mean to collect data, and then how do we use it really best for growing.
Yeah, and I think, and it's a long-term issue. I mean, if I could wave my magic wand, in 10 years, you will have some way of communicating with every local business in your jurisdiction, be able to survey them on a quarterly basis and get quick hits on how they are doing as a business, figure out what their needs are, compile them, direct your economic development activities, so forth. You know, there's little bits and pieces that I'm sure you're doing like that now. The Chamber does some of that, and AUDITOR does some of that, but it needs to be done more comprehensively. And it needs to be done also with those entrepreneurs who you mentioned who are not necessarily plugged into the established business community. So it's a good challenge to set in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. We have Councillor Vasquez again, I believe, and then Councillor Sword.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all my colleagues. I think this is a great, very productive conversation to have here, and really hope it leads to some concrete action on behalf of us as policymakers, but also our Economic Development Department and our city administration to move some of these ideas forward. Also looking forward to hearing from Mr. Jim Peach, who I know is our local expert as well here on our economy, as well as others who are on this call. One quick question. So a few years back, I had this just concept of creating a small business resource center in City Hall. You know, the idea would have been to have a welcoming place for a potential small business owner or an existing entrepreneur to come in and get the information that they needed from the city, whether it was permitting, whether it was incentives, whether it was zoning, right? Any of those questions that somebody might have that's not experienced, or that maybe just needs a question answered, or perhaps that they can get pointed in the right direction, whether it's to a local chamber of commerce or to a small business development group. To have that be front and center in the lobby of City Hall as a way to just, you know, both be business friendly, but provide real resources that encourages entrepreneurship because you feel like your city is supporting you. Unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition. It was kind of a hybrid concept that at the time the city manager created that was served more the purpose of like just sealing deals with folks in a comfortable room that's not intimidating, but really didn't meet the intent of what I thought that resource should have been. And so I guess the question is, in terms of, have you seen other cities do similar things in terms of creating like a welcoming business center? Again, not duplicating the resources of other small business development centers, assuming we don't have 1 or 2 people to staff it, but how, have you seen other cities create those kind of efforts? And does that help in terms of creating that culture that you're talking about?
Yes, I have. And Riverside, California is a good example of a city that, I don't know how long ago, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, that they created a so-called one-stop shop. And that was very effective in, you know, putting zoning, licensing, land use planning, a bunch of departments that affect a business all in one spot, so a person could just knock on a bunch of doors and do the appointments all in one sitting. And if there were any contradictions, you could bring people together and negotiate that through. So I think that's important. But what I would also say is that Riverside has recognized that the one-stop shop in and of itself only solves some problems. So I mentioned one of the other problems, which is the fees, and there's a need for a new system to reduce those fees up front for businesses. The second problem is, I think it goes back to the previous councilwoman, and that is that I think early stage entrepreneurs who are women and less experienced people of color who are entrepreneurs, they may be afraid, they may be intimidated by this whole process. And how do you reduce that intimidation? And I think what's important is that you develop a kind of a tiger team in the city that say one person adopts a couple of different businesses, and when problems come up, that person becomes a contact point to sort of hold their hand and work them through it. So, but lots of things that can be done here.
Thank you, Mr. Schuman. I appreciate that. I have a few other questions. The next one is, so one of the things I did early on was kind of take a survey of some vacant property or some underutilized property in my district that I thought would be ripe for things like like a small business courtyard or something similar, where you could create these very low cost locales where people could sell food or goods, or even other places that have been abandoned, or manufacturing areas that just are being underutilized. And so one of the thoughts I've always had is what could the city be doing in terms of land acquisition or property acquisition? We're doing some of that now, but really they're kind of one-off projects that come as an opportunity that are very obvious in terms of what we could do with a big piece of land in a very desirable commercial district, but not so much looking at infill and like looking at those little spots where we could revitalize communities by setting up small business types of centers. So how have you seen cities' roles, in terms of that land acquisition or property acquisition piece to facilitate business development as a landlord, essentially?
Right. So I've seen a lot of different things out there. The county where I live, Montgomery County in Maryland, we recently changed the zoning regs to allow people to put auxiliary dwelling units on their property, and they could put some cases tiny houses on their property. And so as was identified early on, zoning is a great obstacle if it's not thought through what the implications are, and changing some zoning to allow more tiny homes, more community land trusts, I think could be really interesting. And that can be done commercially as well. I've become a real fan of community land trusts in the last year. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, I mean, a community land trust is basically a nonprofit that holds land, and then there are housing or commercial projects that are put on there. But by holding the land in a kind of a nonprofit trust, you bring down the price of people buying a house because they're only buying the house, not the underlying land. You also can keep that house permanently affordable. And a great example of a community land trust was started by Burlington, Vermont, by that unknown mayor, Bernie Sanders, back in the 1980s. And I mean, they basically did a $200,000 municipal bond issue, used that bond to buy some properties, put it in a nonprofit, and start this land trust. And the land trust now has about 2,000 households that are living in various parcels of land that they've acquired over the years. And some of the land also is commercial property. And the overall enterprise that they've grown there is, I think, more than $100 million of assets. So, I mean, something like that could be started. And I think that one of the fallouts of COVID is that people are going to need less commercial space. There's going to be a lot more people working at home, but a lot more people are going to be thrown out of their rental situation. So the affordability housing crisis is going to get a lot worse. So that's why I would put something like a community land trust front and center of something you think about.
We may be calling on you soon someday.
You know where to find me.
Before I get to Councillor Sorg, if I may, Carrie Hamblin, CEO of the Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce, had a couple thoughts she wanted to talk to you about, as well as Councillor Flores, who we've been trying to get on also. So if you don't mind, Carrie, can you jump in?
Well, thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to be part of this. Even though we are distant, I still love the opportunity of being connected through Zoom and being able to see your faces. Mr. Schuman, as Mayor Miyagishima mentioned, I'm the CEO and president of the Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce, and we started about 10 years ago when our community received an Olive Garden in town, and through our local papers sound off column, which was where people could call anonymously and let them know weird opinions, the whole town went nuts. We finally have an Olive Garden. Yay, we're finally a real city. And we had 3 locally owned Italian food restaurants that were like, what about us? And so we had a board of directors of local business owners who said, we need to help equal or level the playing field for locally owned businesses. And that's why we were started. And so we talked about the triple bottom line, which I know you're familiar with. We talk about sustainable communities. We talk about keeping money in our community and supporting local jobs. But when I first came on to the Green Chamber in 2012, there was this misconception about what we were doing, because as a green chamber, people thought that it was that you had to be a renewable energy business or recycling business in order to be a member of the Green Chamber. And so when I came on board, I was really determined to help reframe that narrative, to talk about when you support a local business, you reduce your carbon footprint, you keep money in the community. Supporting local businesses put less strain on the infrastructure than do new corporate businesses or big chains. And really teaching people to think local first. And it took about 4 or 5 years to really help kind of change that mindset in the community where we're talking about locally owned businesses. And so I'm really grateful that we were part of that. But one of the things that I think is really important to recognize here is that we have a number of organizations here that are doing many of the things that you're talking about. We have, the Arrowhead Center, which focuses on entrepreneurship. West, which focuses on women and people of color and helping those small businesses. The Small Business Development Center, helping small businesses. Mavita, really working on getting outside businesses and bringing that money. And then there are the chambers, and my counterpart, Debbie Moore, is also here on the call. When Debbie first came on, she was really helping also kind of change the narrative for the Greater Las Cruces Chamber, as it had a different one prior to her service. But what we all agree with, and we work together, I think, very well, is recognizing that we may have different roads. Our overall goal is to make sure that our business community thrives, but the roads that we take to get there are different. And so with the Green Chamber, we have a lot of nonprofits that are members of the Green Chamber because, as you know, local businesses give back to local nonprofits 350% more than do national chains. And so there is that likely partnership. But I think what, is really important to recognize is that, we do have some systems to collect data. The Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce has the Sustainable Business Recognition Program, where we ask businesses to self-identify and self-report what they do to reduce, reuse, and recycle, but also to report how much money they spend at other local businesses. We also have the Triple Bottom Line certification program that we work in partnership with New Mexico Family First, that really determines what family-friendly businesses there are. And when a business gets that certification and they go through our Sustainable Business Recognition Program, we do the Triple Bottom Line certification. So we do have those systems in place, which is really wonderful to be able to do. But also we do have our Think Local First initiative. Our directory features all of our local business members, but we also use that as an opportunity to talk about the importance of locally owned businesses. And, there are several folks here on the call who participated in our Construction Compadres y Comadres program, where it was really, Councilor Gondara, she is almost a champion taco eater and hamburger eater. But it was really a way of creating more awareness about businesses that were impacted by local construction that we had within the last couple of years. And so, it's wonderful to be able to have those partnerships. I think where, the city can really be helpful, and I know this is not news, is that to make it easier for businesses to operate, make it easier for them to get inspections, have one inspector assigned for each job, make it easier for their permits to get acquired. Because that's where we're finding, and Debbie, I'd love for you to chime in if you'd like, is where our businesses are having hardship, because we do have these several agencies here that we refer to each other if we cannot provide that service. And I'm really grateful for that partnership, because that wasn't always the case. And the fact that we've got so many different agencies working together to help our businesses, I think especially now during COVID, is going to be really, really important for us to do. And where the city can come into play is to help make that process easier for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one thing I would just add is I think there is a role for figuring out maybe an independent panel of local businesses that produces a policy wish list as a way of reducing the burdens, increasing the harmony with these various systems the city has in place for licensing and zoning and so forth. And formalizing that and putting that forward could be quite useful.
Absolutely.
Debbie Moore, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will just say ditto, and I think to you, Mr. Mayor, and the councilors, that I agree. Anything we can do with Carrie, anything we can do to help businesses navigate the system internally at the city is a positive thing, because in my previous cities I worked in, Mr. Schuman, one thing I knew is that concierge, and we have a concierge here at the city of Las Cruces. That's a powerful tool, someone that can work and walk them through the process, because an entrepreneur is so excited over just starting a business. Sometimes they get overwhelmed by it all. But I will say, I think now is the time more than ever. Both Carrie and I, we're in the trenches day in and day out with our businesses that are trying to navigate. They're trying to find out what their new normal is, how they define that, how we move through this together as a community. I always say businesses want to be safe businesses. They want it safe for their employees. They also want to be safe for the shoppers. And it's all of us together. And I think now is the time. It's a pivotal time in our economy. It's maybe not going to be an easy process, but thank you for your presentations. I've ordered your books and I've been reading them over the weekend. And having been in the chamber industry for 30 years, you're echoing many of my thoughts that the small business is the one that helps the nonprofits. They're the ones that sponsor the soccer teams and the baseball teams, and they're the ones everyone goes to when they need some assistance. And that's a powerful tool. And sometimes I feel like the small businesses, not particularly at Las Cruces, but generally speaking, are sometimes overlooked. But they're the ones that are there. We need to connect our passion with those small businesses and actually just connect those dots. And I think we have collected dots. We may not know whether they're dots or they're squares right now, but COVID is bringing us into, I think, the reality of caring for one another, caring for community stronger. And at the end of all of this, I think our business community, our community as a whole, is going to be stronger. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Flotis, you've been wanting to say something. Can you hear us? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Let me.
Just hang up with the phone. There you go.
If I hang up on the phone.
Oh, you're talking. Oh, I thought you were.
You see, can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
See,
well, so far we're good.
There's something very weird here is happening. So I missed out on most of Mr. Schuman's presentation. And I have to leave my phone on, otherwise I'll disconnect entirely from the meeting. Don't ask me how it worked or it doesn't work, but it's a mess. Mr. Schuman, thank you so much for your presentation. I missed most of it, but I did learn a lot from the questions my colleagues, fellow counselors asked, and I was particularly, let me just put that away. I was particularly intrigued by the one question that was asked, prompted you to talk about communal land trust?
Community land trust, yeah.
Community land trust. So, do you know? This is the first I've heard of it, and perhaps other people who are participating are. Gil, that wasn't my dog barking. That was an Edie. So now I'm working off of 2 phones, and I heard that dog. I don't know who it was. It wasn't Edie. So do you know of any communities that are doing this, Mr. Mayor and Councilor Sword, and maybe Mr. Dollahan? I guess I'm thinking of the people who have been the longest with the city. Has anything like this ever been attempted here in the city? And if not, how do we go about it? Because this is very exciting to me. It seems that the community land trust could be owned by the nonprofits. And of course, then their interest would be to just own the land so that homes could be built there. And then people who ordinarily wouldn't be able, because I was just reading an article this morning that the median price for a home here is about $190,000. And I just can't imagine where we have overall, one of the highest poverty, well, we do, I think it's the poorest state in the country. And then I guess our local, I think it's higher than the 20-something% that someone mentioned. All that being said, though, I don't think that people, especially with COVID, are going to be able to buy homes. And we do have a housing shortage for affordable. And I'm not talking about affordable, oh, it's affordable for someone retiring and to come here and buy a $200,000 house. I mean, I think people would be very lucky to be able to afford maybe a mortgage for about $75,000 or $100,000, maybe less. I don't know exactly. I don't have the data. But do you have anywhere we can go with this? Take this to our, say, work with Carrie Hamblin, work with Debbie Moore, work with our nonprofits.
Well, yes, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor, I was just going to say the one community land trust I'm aware of is in Albuquerque. It's called the Sawmill District. And let's put it this way, if this COVID-19 had not happened, we would have been deep into a discussion on one in particular that I was going to bring to council's attention in a closed meeting under a land acquisition. So we're just going to, let's just put it this way, let's just put that on hold until we can get through this. And this isn't the land that's in your district. That's a different one. That's, yeah, I can't hear you.
See, I'm working with this and working with that. And okay, so
we're familiar. I'm familiar with it, and I'm sure some members of our staff as well, and Mr. Schuman. So, yeah.
So you're familiar with it, and members of our staff are familiar with it, and it seems to me that it's something should be forefront in the Finance Select Committee, and it should be in the forefront of the Economic Development Committee, the PRC. And it should be in the forefront of the Economic Recovery Ad Hoc Board. I mean, this is something that we really have to be looking at because it looks like it'll be a win-win for everybody. And this is the first. I thank you so much for bringing that up, Mr. Schuman.
It would be, Councilor. It's just
Mr. Mayor said that Mr. Mayor said that there. I'm sorry.
We can hear you. Just,
I know you can hear me.
We hear three of you.
The problem is that I have to have that phone on to be able to hear any answers and then put the volume up. So we do know of one in New Mexico, Albuquerque, but that may not be the model we want to use just because.
Well, theirs was a different model because I also
want to thank you, Mr. Schuman, for bringing up the fact that this would be a way to go because of COVID having an impact on the fact that we're not going to be needing a lot of real estate for a lot of businesses that we're used to having. And we know very well now that even retail is having a bad time and everybody's going online and people are finding that it's even better to go that way. People are enjoying being at home or find that it's better to be working at home. And there's going to be a lot of changes as a result of COVID, as Ms. Moore brought up. So thank you again very much, and I'll be listening to the first part of your presentation on our recording. Thank you.
Before I go to the next round of councilors who've already asked some comments, can I, if I may, ask if Dr. Peach would like to comment on something. Dr. Peach, are you available? And do you have any questions or comments? Dr. Peach?
He's on mute, Mayor.
There you go.
Now I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Sure. First, I thoroughly enjoyed Mr. Schuman's presentation, and there, as everybody has discussed, there are any number of really good ideas here. I was also pleased that, very pleased to see that economic development should be broad. It should be a social development as well as economic development. The great Nobel Prize winning economist and development economist Gunnar Myrdal defined development as the upward movement of an entire social system. And I think that's what you're all talking about here. I was very pleased to hear Carrie Hamlin describe some, not all, but some of the resources that are already available. Arrowhead Center and the two chambers and all kinds of resources are available. One that was not mentioned is the State Economic Development Department, and they have all kinds of funds that they can use for business startups and the like. One of the most intriguing ideas that I saw here was to do something on either waiving or financing the fees that are necessary for a brand new business. And I think that has a lot of potential. New entrepreneurial activity may require more than just that, though. Over the years, dealing with a number of people, somebody may have a really good idea for a new business and not have any even basic accounting skills. You can't imagine the number of people I've talked to over the years who have no idea that profit is the difference between total revenue and total cost. And just no clue, or what total revenue might be or what total cost might be. I am over the years very impressed with the availability of capital to finance businesses, and even the local banking community. You need two things to get money. You need a good business plan and at least not a bad past credit history. They want to say yes. Now, many entrepreneurs are not going to have a clue how to put together a business plan. And there is help for that. They can go to Arrowhead Center. There are all kinds of things. But just the really basic stuff of starting a business, it's more than saying I can make the best hamburger in town or the best green enchilada, and that these things will sell. You've got to have some clue about basic business terms, basic business activities that you've got to do. And that is much needed. The other thing that I would recommend is, you've got a real strength in your economic development director at the city in Griselda. I may be biased. She was once one of my students, but she is really, really good. And you've got other strengths that several people have described here. Go for it. But decide what you're trying to do in the first place. I'll say one more thing, and then I'll quit. decades ago, one of my old development profs said, you need to define for yourself what you mean by economic development. If you don't have some definition of economic development, you won't be asking the right questions, you won't know what the goals are, you won't know what the objectives are, and you're not likely to be very successful. You've got to define it. What does it mean? And I've been listening. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I'll quit, and thank you, Mr. Schuman, for your presentation. That was very good.
Thank you, Dr. Peach. Good to see you. I'm taking over for a few minutes as Mayor has to step out. Next is Sharon Thomas. Sharon? We'll go back to her. Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you again, Dr. Peach, and to Carrie and to Debbie for your comments and for all that you do for small businesses in our community already. Like I said, I think for us as policymakers and being able to create the systems that help to have small businesses flourish, but really to encourage those underserved communities. Again, building wealth to me is really where it's needed, right? And so that means underserved communities, communities of color, minority business owners, for them to be able to survive, to thrive in our city. Building wealth is part of that equation, and that comes through entrepreneurship for many, and creating those good local paying jobs that I think are really sorely needed in certain parts of our city. And so I just want to go back to some of the ideas that we maybe talked about and how we turn those into policy proposals with Dr. Peach's framework in mind of what is success, right? And if success is trying to get higher paying jobs, more dollars in the hands of those who currently don't have them, or who are on the lower rungs of the economic ladder, then we create policies that help get us to that place. And so I know we've talked a little bit about this in the past in terms of the Economic Development Department bringing council some policy recommendations that allow us to move in that direction. And so I want to continue to do that. And with a new city manager, if we want to come up with a comprehensive plan to create a greater entrepreneurial culture that benefits those populations, then it needs to come with a set of policy recommendations, the potential for tax incentives that the city can leverage to help prop up these folks in these communities to be able to create these businesses. And so don't want us to lose the steam and the momentum of this conversation moving forward, so that we can build on all the great work that's already being done, partnering with local organizations. But like I said, if we can create a place on El Paseo or on Solano or somewhere where the city can really facilitate the growth of local small businesses with that really low entry, that low barrier entry to business ownership, then let's do that, right? Let's come up with the policies and the investment and the tax incentives that we need to do that. So this idea of having folks recommend some policy ideas, especially those who are already in business or are thinking about going in business and know the barriers better than anyone else, I think would be a welcome opportunity. So I just wanted to express that in whatever form that may come, Mr. Maestas, in terms of convening a group that can help to iron out a small business relief package or some type of policy framework that helps set some opportunities for council in the near future to keep moving these things along. Then we should do that. We should have a roadmap. And then lastly, that Mil Gracias room or the small business resource room, I would love for that to just kind of come, hopefully the vision at the time that was widely accepted by the council and the city manager. If we could finally get that done, that would be really appreciated, because I can imagine that post-COVID, as small business owners have questions ranging from everything from perhaps state incentives to federal incentives to questions about their employees. Having that resource in the city, as Mr. Schuman mentioned, as a non-threatening kind of place where you can go and either be linked to a Chamber of Commerce, be linked to the State Department of Workforce Solutions, or even talk about the city's permitting process, whatever that issue might be. I would still love for the city to have that and for us to have directions, a big sign right when you walk into the lobby that says that this is a place where you can get the resources you need. So would love to also see that being implemented in the next several months. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I have the microphone on now. Can you hear me?
Oh, Sharon, you're up next then. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Councillor Vasquez. I really appreciate those comments. And I know from the previous council that Mil Gracias room was exciting to agree to have. I know that there's been some challenges, but it is in existence. And I know Mr. Nichols is working hard to ensure that it's a more positive sort of one-stop shop, and it's something that we certainly can continue to work on. So with that, I will turn that over back to Mayor, and Sharon Thomas is up, Mayor.
Okay, Sharon, good to hear from you.
Yes.
So
Let me turn on my video. Okay. So maybe Mr. Schuman could help us develop the policies we need to have to achieve the city's vision for developments, hearing lots and lots of good ideas about what our vision might be. I loved hearing about Zingerman's. I'm from Michigan. I've spent lots of time in Zingerman's. Great place. And I want to say that I've been a fan of economic gardening for a long time, but I didn't like the Gazelle's idea either. I thought it sort of went off track when it went in that direction. So I just read Mr. Schuman's book, The Local Economy Solution, and where he talks about these pollinators and how economic development actually gets done by the businesses themselves. And so I would love to hear more about that and see if something like that can happen here. And I just wanted to mention one other thing that has to do with this zoning issue. Homes are the way most people accumulate wealth, so we need to make buying a home easier. And there's a group out of the University of Michigan that's working in Detroit and in a neighborhood where they convinced the city to really make changes to zoning so that smaller and less expensive homes can be built.
getting some feedback there, Sherry. I don't know if that's you or.
I don't know where that's.
Can you all mute your phones if you're not talking, please?
Yeah, I don't think it's me. So they made zoning changes so they could have smaller, less expensive homes so people could actually afford a home. They also allowed duplexes and triplexes can obtain income from other units. So it helps people buy a home and then also get some income to pay off that home. They also have a fund where people can put in a small investment and own a percentage, and have a percentage of the ownership in some housing, and then that can grow until they have enough for a down payment for their own home. So I think zoning is very, very important and something to look at, especially now that the city's in the midst of changing zoning to go with a new Elevate Las Cruces. So this would be a great time to look at those possibilities, how we can help change zoning to help economic development. And I really appreciated your talk, Mr. Schuman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Emeritus. Yeah, I wondered if you picked up on the Michigan State stuff. But Ann Arbor, that's your rival, huh? Right?
Yeah, that's University of Michigan versus Michigan State.
Okay, right. Yeah, those are the Wolverines.
That doesn't mean I can't go to Zimmerman's and have good food.
Okay, well, I know how that's just like the Aggies and the Lobos.
Right.
Okay, so we've got next is Councilor Sorg, then Debbie Moore, and then Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple, 3 points that I wanted to bring out. Councilor Bencomo reminded me something I wanted to mention too today, and that is to think about the workers in the city here. That's where most of our poverty is, if not almost all of it. We all can't be entrepreneurs. And yes, we need to help entrepreneurs, but it's
Uh-oh. Did you freeze up there, Councilor Sword? Looks like he might have. We'll go ahead. Let's go to Debbie Moore, and then we'll circle back to Councilor Sword. Debbie, are you available?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Schuman, just a point of clarification on you mentioned, and you talked about the local and city tax credits. Are those independent in each locality and municipality, or do you like layer them with federal incentives and federal different different zones, opportunity zones, things like that? Or do all of the above? All of the above. You know, I know we are in an area that some of the USDA funding applies, some of it economic, and how do you partner that then with a local tax credit incentive, et cetera? Oh, I think he froze, Mr. Mayor.
Michael, you there?
Yeah, it's good question. And hold on, I'll take my video off. Am I good now? Can you hear me okay? All right. Let me go without the video for just a moment and hopefully restabilize. So the idea of a local investment tax credit or a state investment tax credit is to incentivize grassroots investors to put money into local business, local projects, even one another. You know, there aren't a lot of examples of local tax credits around local investment. There's plenty of examples of tax credits out there, but almost all of them are available for wealthy investors. Opportunity zones is an example of a whole tax credit system that was intended to be for everyone, but in point of fact, since only people with significant capital gains can participate, and they have to put money in funds, and the only funds that have been formed allow accredited investors, that is the top 1 or 2% of people by wealth and by income, it's a very limited playing field for people to participate in. So my argument is that a local investment tax credit invites everyone in small amounts to participate in the local investment ecosystem side by side with the wealthier investors who can participate with opportunity zones and new markets tax credits.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I follow up with a question on that? So, Mr. Schuman, so what I'm hearing and I'm understanding, and I think some of these policies to the councilors that have mentioned, as we do through the recovery board, some of this can actually start as we recover through the COVID. But what I'm hearing is there's one side that would be a local investment to this grassroots investor, but then the city could provide some for the lack of a better term, tax credits or credit somehow for the entrepreneur or the business that's starting it. So you've got this dual process of establishment, both from the grassroots investment and from the entrepreneur itself, so that all works together. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And let me also say that, I mean, we've been talking about local investment largely in terms of investment in local businesses, and I think that should be a main focus. But you can also invest in people buying houses. You can invest in energy efficiency and water efficiency. You can invest in helping people get out of the terrible debt that they're going to be in post-COVID. So I think it's useful to think broadly about how to encourage people to invest in one another in your community rather than losing the benefits of that investment when it completely goes to Wall Street.
Debbie, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. I have been toying with some ideas that myself is how to, of course, with chamber industry, we're trying to think about how larger business can actually invest in smaller businesses membership during this time. But I've also listening to the council week after week. How can we invest in training? How can we make certain, the food insecurity? How are we meeting that? It's investment in the person, it's investment in our business, but it's at the end of the day, it's an investment in our community. So I look at a broad base versus just the business. And so, yes, I would love to further that conversation with the city and see how we could establish that, maybe utilizing some of our local foundations in that regard. But it's way more than just investing in business. I would love to see invest in homes. And tiny houses and how do we make that? And I could go on and on because I'm very passionate about it, and I won't. So, but thank you for your input.
Mr. Mayor, could I say one more thing real quick?
Of course, Dr. Peach.
And I really appreciate what Debbie Moore just said, but I want to tell you all that right now is an extraordinarily good time to borrow money, both for businesses that might be starting up, and even the city, if you need extra funds to implement some of these things. The Federal Reserve has pumped a couple of $1 trillion in the financial markets, and interest rates are just extraordinarily low. Use that. You can finance all of this stuff if you want it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we're doing just that. I think we borrowed, I don't know, $15-20 million recently. So we recognize that money is cheap right now.
Oh, that's good.
On the other hand, we have a pretty good investment side that those interest rates hurt us. So on one hand, it helps us. The other hand, it hurts us. But nonetheless, we appreciate those comments. Looks like Councilor Sorg is, well, before I get to that, Larry, did you have something, Larry Nichols, did you have something you wanted to share with us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There's other Councilor Larry Nichols, Economic Development.
Hey, before you go in, hold on, Larry. If you can please mute your phones if you're not speaking, please. Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. I'll begin again. Mayor and members of the council, Larry Nichols, Community Development Director. I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts with the council and with the mayor and also with Mr. Schuman. Several times during the presentation, it was brought up about the zoning and the building codes and the building fees and the costing of registrations as being an impediment to small business. One of the things that was mentioned, Mr. Schuman, I think you mentioned that Riverside, California was an example of where they developed a one-stop shop. And that very quickly brought a thought to me. The fellow that was behind that in Riverside, I believe his name was John Kurtz. John Kurtz and I worked together in Yuma, Arizona. We developed the one-stop shop there. He went to Riverside, California. I went to El Paso, Texas, and we both carried those programs. They have been very helpful. We have that program here now in Las Cruces, and what we're finding is been very helpful to economic development. We have other items that were brought up today about the conciergeship, but we work with developers. We work with the economic development to help people bring investment. We are updating our zoning code. We have just adopted the Elevate Las Cruces comprehensive plan that is going to be a vehicle in which a lot of these ideas and thoughts that were expressed today are going to be able to be implemented. I just wanted to mention all of these to help give some peace of mind, if you will, to the mayor and council that many of these things that were brought up, we have in position and we are working with them. The Mil Gracias room, I guess it maybe mostly, but I'm the one that brought that name and that idea to the city, and it has been used. In fact, the Mil Gracias room was the first location that the developer for the hospital, Goldenrod Enterprises, that is where they met with the city to talk about developing the Apodaca blueprint position. So all of those things are here. They're being worked on. They're being used. We're finding that the best offer that we can make to small business is to move their processing and permitting and all quickly. Time is as much of an incentive to them through the process as money. But thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to express it. Oh, by the way, the last 4 months during the COVID pandemic, the construction activity has set records for the last 12 years in terms of the revenues, the permitting issuance, and all of those numbers. And it's to do with what the professor just mentioned. People are able to qualify for loans to buy properties. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Larry. In fact, Mr. Schuman, before Larry got here, I would get complaints all the time from contractors. And ever since Larry set up shop here, him, and then later on with the concierge, Donald Bustos, I have gotten literally zero. We can't thank Larry's initiative enough. I remember you were even doing inspections through what do you call that? The FaceTime. Yeah, and so you've done a great job for I'm one of your biggest cheerleaders there, Larry. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That what you're talking about there was what we call the interactive video inspection, but it helps business owners move through the inspection process much quicker.
And you know what? While I have you, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but this is really important, Mr. Schuman. Just a few days ago, the governor basically shut down all indoor dining. So Larry, real quick, can you just share with us, the members of the public that are watching, what you've done to help those that are quickly trying to get some type of outdoor dining? I think you've relaxed or you've expedited some rules to allow them to be able to get some temporary structures up so that they can, they can move their chairs out so that they can kind of have some outdoor dining.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Larry Nichols, Community Development. What we're finding is alternative means and methods to our codes to allow them to utilize their outdoor space to serve curbside. We're finding ways to approve inspections on altering their different building systems, like electrical systems, some of their instant exiting, and some of their other mechanical type of business devices. This all came from the idea that I study and coordinate with the International Code Council, how other businesses in other parts of the country, clear back to Maryland, if you will, are how they're utilizing assistance and getting people through reopening provisions for their business to help with the compliance with the code. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, well, we were able to get Councilor Sorg online, and I think he's available. Councilor Sorg, are you there? Oh, boy. Okay. Well, guess not. So let's go to Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and thank you, everyone. I'm glad that Debbie and Carrie are on, and Dr. Peach, I've never met you, but I'm glad you're on this call. It seems like you're an incredible resource for our community, so I look forward to speaking with you more. And Larry, I actually, that's so funny that you jumped on, because you reminded me of an article I was reading as I was preparing for this work session that had to do with the role of community development in addressing the widening income inequality in communities. And so I'm going to send it to you because it just really hits on a lot of the things that we've been talking about here in terms of how I think, and Councilor Vasquez named this in some of the zoning code, but really how community development can play a big role in inequity that then inequity often can lead to crime. They can lead to homelessness. It can lead to pretty serious things that, in fact, we're seeing in our community right now. We have seen such a huge increase in property crime and violent crime. And some of these things can be addressed and should be addressed through community development. And I think that we have such a big role to play in that. I think that Elevate Las Cruces gives us a really great pathway. So, Larry, I'm going to be sending you this article so that we can talk about some of the strategies that can best, that community development can play a role in. And one of those big roles is actually supporting and helping families and individuals purchase their homes. And not just that, but I brought this up before as a first-time home buyer myself, that there are all kinds of rules that nobody tells you. And I was just talking to Dr. Garcia from Utilities Department. He's like, well, have you drained your water tank? And I'm like, nobody told me I was supposed to drain my water tank. Anyway, off topic, but I'm just saying there's a ton of information that those of us who have not grown up in affluent families do not have access to. And I think as a city, we have such a big role to play in that. Anyway, I digress. I actually wanted to ask, my only question was for Dr. Martinez. I wanted to ask what kind of partnership we have with the Arrowhead Center. I think Dr. Peach named that. They were doing a lot of this cultivating entrepreneurs, teaching new entrepreneurs how the very administrative side of business. And so I'm wondering what the relationship is like now, and if there's room to grow it, and how we can do that.
Yes, Mayor, Councilor Bencomo, we have a working relationship with Arrowhead, and the extent of what we have currently in place at an institutional level is the memorandum of understanding of the cohorts that I just mentioned. I believe that there is a lot more room for more partnerships, because the goal they have programs that focus on youth, which is a big area of need in our community. They have opportunities to focus on college students specifically. With the current situation, they have changed and adapted to e-commerce, and that's where we're leveraging upon. But I believe that there are many other opportunities that we can leverage their expertise. Another possible area is how do we expand into some of the other more traditional needs, such as food incubators, which have been proving in other communities to be a way to help communities move forward and upward. And so I believe that there are many more opportunities. We're partnering with them. Well, they're part of the Economic Development Policy Review Committee now, representing NMSU. I believe that there are many opportunities as we continue to explore the gaps and filling with programming to make sure that we continue to partner and not duplicate efforts, and leverage upon the resources and the common vision that we all have to help our community move forward, and specifically targeting those who may be out of the system or marginalized or with other challenges. So workforce development I see it as a key component to that. But many ways that we can still partner with Arrowhead and Doñana Community College, SBDC West. So we have a good working relationship, just to make those from the institutional approach. We have a lot of room to make those changes.
Great. That's great to hear, Dr. Martinez. And I think it's important that we explored what some of those gaps are, so that we're not duplicating services, but really getting at providing, information and resources that a lot of people might need. And I worry sometimes about, I think NMSU sometimes operates very much in a bubble, and so I worry very much that not a ton of folks have access to some of those things. So how do we better partner with them so that they have a greater reach in the Las Cruces community, especially for some of those more marginalized folks?
Mayor, Councilor Bencomo, tied to what Councilor Vasquez had mentioned before, one of the ideas that can lower those barriers in working with our partners at Workforce Connections as well is how do we have all of these services under one roof to prevent that people don't have to make different trips to different resources. And so the concept of having the business support entities, the workforce development partners, and also other services that may be tied to housing or unemployment or other items, it may be another area that we could explore and continue to bring the barriers as low as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so last thing I'll say is that I personally love the idea of community land trusts. I think I'm really glad you brought that into the space. And I've been, studying, looking into the Sawmill District in Albuquerque for a while, and it just, I think it's a good and smart way forward for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Let's try one more time. Oh, David Dallahan, did you have a quick comment?
No, sir.
Oh, no. Okay. Let's try one more time with Counselor Sword. He's somebody's working outside his house, I guess, with the internet. And Counselor Sword, are you with us? Going once, going twice.
Oh, I'm with you for sure, Mayor.
Okay. Well, did you have any comments that you wanted to say?
Oh, it's too late now. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. Did my best. Debbie Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make an announcement. Well, first I want to comment on Councilor Bencomo. I think what we've got going now, Councilor, is a great partnership of all of our organizations and trying to figure out those gap analysis so we can figure out who we need to recruit to fill in that gap between all of our agencies, from the Workforce Collaborative that's got several people at the table to the Bridge organization and the chamber. So I think we've got the skeleton of there. Maybe we haven't been as good as to share what we're doing with everyone, but I think that is a priority for me to try to let's put it down in writing. Let's see what we've got and where we need to go from there. The last thing I just want to announce, because you had mentioned business crime, we are partnering with LCPD for a Friday Zoom. You all probably got your email from the chamber, and that will be from 9 to 10:30 on Friday. We have several of the officers, Deputy Chief going to be there. And as of this morning, it's been out like 48 hours. We have almost 50, I think about 40 to 50 people already signed up. So we are addressing current issues during this COVID. So the chamber is trying to stay on top of those so we can provide the resources, and we're partnering with the other chambers in the city and getting that word out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, Michael and Mr. Schuman, I can't thank you enough for you sharing your information with us. I mean, I know you're a well-known nationally. You go around throughout the nation talking about this, and thank you for not charging us today and giving us a freebie, but this was incredible. Hopefully we can call on you in the future for something, and perhaps we probably will pay you for that. But thank you again, and appreciate it very much.
It's a great honor to work with you folks. I've had the pleasure and privilege of being in Las Cruces once before, and think it's a gorgeous city, and happy to be connected with you all.
Great. Well, I'm sure
Is this really pro bono?
Yeah, no, really, he gave it to us for free.
Wow, thank you.
So we're going to make sure that Councilor Flores takes you out all you can eat steak and lobster next time you come into town.
Local restaurant though, not the Olive Garden.
Okay, here you go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move to our next item, which is item 1.2, which is the police auditor RFP. And that is going to be Jennifer Vega Brown, our city attorney, and Viola Perea is also going to help out. So I don't know which one's going to start off first.
So, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Viola Perea, interim audit manager. Today we're going to review a presentation we prepared for the police auditor services. I will be sharing my screen, and then Miss Jennifer Vega Brown will begin the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go through the presentation. If you want me to repeat anything, please let me know, or if you need me to slow down, please let me know, and I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along. As you know, the city issued an RFP and entered into a professional services agreement for police audit services in August of 2014. We are in the process of reviewing that RFP, the whole RFP process. It may be that we're going to kind of stay with the same model, but what we would like to get from you today is some input on what your thoughts are. I'll wait for Viola to share the screen.
Can you all see the screen?
Not yet. Not yet.
You all can't see my screen?
No, ma'am. Not yet.
How about now?
No.
No.
Viola, did you share it? Did you save it to SharePoint?
It is on SharePoint, David, yes.
Let me see if I can get it and open it for you.
Thank you.
David Dullahan, this is David Maestas. I'm already in the process of
Okay.
If you want to give me a second or two, we'll see if I can get it going.
I'll defer to you, sir.
Thank you.
So how was everybody's weekend?
Mine was very good, Mayor. Thank you for asking.
No. Well, you can do two things at one time there. We're looking for, yeah, it was hot. Yeah, really hot. Hopefully not this coming week. I don't know.
The hardest part is waiting for the computer. As fast as technology is, it still takes a while to call it up.
Sure, sure. Councilor Sorg, are you on both video and audio? Councilor Sorg? No, doesn't look like. And Councilor Flotis, I know we saw you earlier. Oh, looks like we're about ready to. There we go. Okay, we've got the screen.
Okay. We can advance to the first. Okay. So as I began, the city issued an RFP for professional services for police audit in 2014. This contract was extended multiple times. I think a total of 5. And it terminated in August of 2019. A 6th contract renewal was underway, but it was determined in late 2019 that a new RFP should be created to address an increased need for more specific data and information. The more detailed information will provide the opportunity to track trends and identify areas of needed improvement and policy revision or implementation. This was discussed, this aspect of it was discussed in detail with the audit team and the former city audit manager. What we determined was that there just wasn't enough detailed information. We didn't have enough data. A selection advisory committee was convened on January 8th, and we discussed the scope of services for the RFP. We reviewed the previous scope of services in the previous contract, and we compared that and added some additional language. The SAC that included individuals from the New Mexico State Police, Doña Ana County Sheriff's Department, LCPD, the City of El Paso Internal Audit, and the City of Las Cruces. That included people from finance, legal, and internal audit. The SAC determined the general scope of services, and the city's internal audit and legal department were asked to finalize the RFP language. What's important to note is that a police audit is not mandated. It is not legally required. This is something that the city has volunteered to do. They have determined through years ago, and I think the mayor has spoken about this previously, that it was determined that a police audit should happen so that we could review internal affairs, investigations, and complaints. Unlike standard financial audits, which follow yellow book or red book rules and government auditing standards, police audits do not have required specific audit standards. And it kind of varies across the board. Ms. Perea did a survey and reached out to many different agencies, and she can tell you how many she reached out just to ask them what their standards were that they were using, and it really came across. It went from everywhere from yellow book and red book to other types of government auditing standards. So it really varies across the board. Generally, police auditors are certified law enforcement auditors. They belong to CLEA or members of the International Law Enforcement Auditors Association, the ILEAA. And like I said before, our internal audit reached out to get an idea of what the general standards are as a best practice model. In the current RFP that has been discussed with the SAC, and in comparing it to our previous contract, there are several scopes of service that it will be narrowed down to. The key components for this contract will be audits of the complaint investigation process. This is a review and report on all formal citizen and internally initiated investigations and law enforcement complaints received on the city's anonymous hotline to ensure investigations were complete, objective, thorough, fair, and actions taken were appropriate. This is also any complaints that will be received and that are investigated through IA. What we did was we included, in addition to what we are already investigating, we included the citizen hotline. Complaints may include code of conduct, ethics, recording devices, physical arrest, search and seizure, use of force, bias-based policing, and vehicle pursuits. Another scope of service will be audits of police operations. It will review and report on policies, procedures, and training issues, and make recommendations for improvement to increase police accountability and transparency in the complaint process. There will also be an evaluation of tort claim notices and/or notice civil actions. This information is related to matters that have been litigated or disposed and are no longer pending and include offender and victim demographics, location of incidents, criminal charges associated with the incidents, disposition of the case, policy violations and dispositions, and police officer demographics. That was another additional change to the former RFP. There was an evaluation of notice civil actions. What we added to that was an evaluation of tort claim, because we receive many different tort claims, and we want to make sure that the tort claim notices that we receive coincide with the other investigations that we are evaluating. And then added to that, which wasn't included before, was the demographic information.
Jennifer, you're kind of fading in a little bit out. I don't know if it's your microphone. I don't know if you can maybe get closer and speak just a little bit louder, please.
Okay, I will try to speak louder.
Okay, thank you.
More key components for the audit services will be follow-up audits. They will conduct follow-up audits to evaluate implementation of recommendations or existence of procedural, practical, or other barriers that may suppress or discourage reporting of complaints. And will also include a comparative analysis. They will compare data from the previous items that we just mentioned to the overall statistics and number of incidents the police department responds to where no complaints were received. So there's going to need to be some kind of comparison where we are evaluating all responses, not just those that generate complaints. Another key component is statistical and trend analysis. They will compile statistics and report on trends based on new and historical data resulting from complaint investigations. The statistical and trend analysis shall include, but will not be limited to, offender and victim demographics, location of incidents, criminal charges associated with the incidents, the disposition of cases, policy violations and dispositions, police officer demographics, and other statistics related to the complaint investigations. Some of the details and reporting, we will require a written audit and evaluation reports, which will be submitted to the city within 30 days of receiving the complaint or notice. And we will require written semi-annual reports, which must be submitted and shall be compliant with the City of Las Cruces accountability and government ordinance. The only caveat to that is that they will not be evaluating complaints of cases that are in pending litigation. That could present some danger to the city, and so those that are pending will be evaluated after the conclusion of that litigation. Other requirements will be on-site presentations and written reports. Some of the information contained in those presentations and written reports will be the number of audit and investigation requests received during each semi-annual period, the number of audits and investigations completed during each semi-annual period, a summary of all dispositions, non-complaint actions, positive actions, findings, and recommendations reported during each semi-annual period, in addition to statistical trend and comparative analysis of new and historical data. The demographics of the audit investigations as they relate to the offender, victim demographics, location of incidents, criminal charges associated with the incidents, disposition of cases, policy violations and dispositions, and police officer demographics. That is also another added detail to the new RFP. Along with, in the RFP, as you've seen on a couple of our bigger contracting, this will be a performance contract. So each scope that we just went through, each scope will have its distinct objective, deliverable and outputs, and performance measures. And I will stand for any questions.
Okay, well, let's see here. Mayor Pro Tem Gondara, Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Nika Brown, and your staff, Viola and others. Really appreciate it. I think for me, the bigger question is that we should be asking ourselves, do we want a police auditor versus a citizen review board, or both? And even digging in deeper than that is about a decade ago, the Las Cruces Police Department hired a outfit, Justice and Security Strategies, to do sort of an overall assessment of police and kind of with internal internal survey, external survey with the community, did several different town halls, and really put some, did ride-alongs, interviewed law enforcement officers, crime victims, looked at crime statistics. I mean, I felt like they did an overall assessment. And so like I asked myself, is it time for us to really look at doing something like that? And I think the answer is yes. I think it's important that, so Jennifer, my question to you is, would this, could this RFP look like that? Or would it be couple of things? One, we're looking at doing an assessment of the overall police, right? Capturing everything I just said around surveys and community forums and such. And then secondly, could this auditor do those kinds of things once a year or once every 6 months to really, because I think what's important is establishing a baseline, and I'm not sure that we have that at this point, and then building from that. I know that there is a lot of different statistics. I know that as we were preparing for the 8 Can't Wait, all of us at different times asked for different types of data. And I know you're currently trying to get some of that data. And so, yeah, so I'll stop there. The question is, could this RFP not only do what you've asked, because I think those are all excellent things that we should definitely consider, but I want for us to dig even deeper. And that is with the surveying, the community forums, looking at crime statistics, making sure that we have the best science-based programming available, so that we're addressing what the problems are to begin with, both in our community, but also within the police force.
Mayor and council, as far as the crime statistics go, there is one of the scopes of service will be a statistical analysis, and it is going to include crime statistics for those incidents and the specific types of crimes that are associated with those complaints and non-complaints. And so there will be an element of statistical analysis in that. As far as a public oversight, we did add language that will require it to be compliant with our accountability in government ordinance. We have advertised for our oversight committee, and there are specific requirements for that oversight committee, and right now we are receiving applications for that oversight committee. So there will be some committee oversight along with all of our other audit functions. We will have that element included in this RFP.
So Jennifer, that oversight committee, that's new to us, actually. And we revamped that policy review committee to look more like that. Can you go over that so that my colleagues and then the public can understand? This is a good plug to put in for people to submit their applications. So I think I just want you to explain, because I think that's really important as we continue to vet whether this is what we want to do or not.
Yes, Mayor and Councilor Gondeta, we, as you are aware, you passed an ordinance a year and a half ago called the Accountability in Government Ordinance. It requires several things. One of the things that it did was establish some independence with our internal audit department and our city auditor. It also created an inspector general position, and it created an oversight committee. One of the things that the oversight committee is tasked with is to evaluate every audit that the city undertakes. It will evaluate for completeness and to make sure that the that the process was fair, that it was thorough. They can make recommendations back to internal audit or whatever audit firm exists at that time. They will report to the city council. They will report any number of things. There are 3 members of the committee, and I believe, I'm trying to look up my ordinance now, 2 ad hoc. The mayor is 1. And then there are specific requirements for each member. There has to be a member with a business background, an accounting background, perhaps. There's a member from either a legal background, law enforcement background, and there was a member with audit background. There could be any variation. We're waiting to see what applications we receive to see if we have enough people who meet those requirements to fill the committee. We used a best practice model that many other cities use, including City of Albuquerque, but out of state. Our external audit firm actually was very familiar with this model, and they liked the model that our former external auditor. They liked the form of the committee. One of the most important part of that is the independence, that it allows more independence for our internal audit function, but it also allows required reporting to the city council.
Okay, all right, thank you, Ms. Vega Brown. My next question is, if we go through this and we decide yes to have, so we're going to have both of these, and very clearly we know that these are the things we want this auditor to look at, be it, because I think we're asking every 6 months, correct?
At least.
At least, yes. Okay, and how in the event, so they would be reviewing cases the year prior, or a time frame if will be identified, or how? And I know that's like looking at all the information, right? The calls that are made, the reporting, be it anonymous calls, complaints, all that, right?
They will be looking at real time. So they will be reviewing complaints that are received and are investigated in the current time period.
Okay. Now, in the event there is an issue, say with a use of force, and how does it get connected to, and maybe there is a personnel matter that needs to be addressed. Is someone from HR connected to them? Do they have their own HR mechanism?
The internal audit isn't intended to review human resource matters or personnel matters, because that would put the city in a precarious position, because personnel matters need to remain separate. However, what they do review will be the investigation of the incident itself. So they're going to look at the investigation itself to make sure that it was properly done, it was thorough, and then they're going to look at the incident itself and address any deficiencies. If there's a policy deficiency, or if there's a trend that they are observing, they're going to note the trend to give us that information. That's one of the most important things that we need, is we need to be able to track trends. Yeah. We don't have a good basis. We don't have data, so that we just need an actual physical mapping of where things are occurring, how they are occurring, who's involved in those incidents. We really just need a good baseline so that we can track any possible trends.
I agree. So I guess for me, Jennifer, I'm appreciative of the work that you've put forth, all the reviews and speaking to, or whatever you've done to look at national best practices. And so I am for the police auditor. I think that's an important function, but I want us to be very specific about what all I'd like to see that auditor initially. I think along with what you just said about establishing that baseline of trends, I think it's very important to establish that baseline for the police force in totality. So also engaging the community, again, like I said, having the internal and external surveying, I think is so important. The focus groups and the forums that I think need to happen that we've shied away from, at least in the 5 years that I've been here. I know there's been like coffee with a cop and some of these other things. And I have to say, anytime that I've had meetings in my district, law enforcement has always been a part of those, and I've appreciated that. Because sometimes we've seen spikes in my district, specifically in property crime and/or here recently gun violence, and so I know that they've been a part of that. But I think, again, we shied away from really understanding what the community's view is about our police force. And we need to move into that. And the other thing I would really like to see is a more robust, I know we have it, but I'm not sure how law enforcement is using our victims advocates. They have a great victim advocate group. Judy Baca, she's been a longtime colleague of mine, but I don't see that we are using that to the best of our ability. And I think they could really help bridge community and the victims to what, and so I guess what I'm saying is I'd like an assessment about how to really engage our victim advocate group, because I think that is so sorely missing, and it's such an important piece. And I'll stop there. I have other stuff, but I want to give my colleagues an opportunity. So thank you.
And Mayor and Councilor, one of the things that we can talk about when you say that you would like to have more surveying of the community, I think that we can add an aspect of that into the RFP, but I think what we'll have to kind of leave it very open-ended and know that through some mechanism, we're going to have to refine what it is we're surveying. What is it that we're looking for, and what questions will we like answered? So we'll have to leave that kind of open-ended so that we can refine that at some other point. But I think that a survey question, certainly some type of surveying is possible. It might be that an option to kind of refine that and maybe put it in the RFP is to include the public safety select committee so that that conversation can occur and we can refine any survey questions.
Sure. I think that's an important aspect for sure, Jennifer. I just want the public to be very much a part of this process. I think it's important. They have very strong views about how they see our police force, and sort of what their encounters have been, if they've had any. Things around customer service are important to me. And if we're going to reimagine what our police force is going to look like, I really want our public to be definitely aware of that. And again, if people haven't seen that decade-old report, I would encourage you to read that. There's a lot of good information in there around community and training and use of police, use of force, and those kinds of things that have really enlightened me. And I do also want to say, Councilor Vasquez, myself, and Mayor Miyagishima have been meeting with our chief, our deputy chiefs, around specifically issues surrounding our districts, and DC Dominguez and DC Brock have been really helpful and open when we have come up with different issues. And we're really talking a lot about how we communicate with the public. They're looking at website changes so that it's easier to navigate. You'll be hearing a little more in the form of a PIO in terms of what to expect and a transparency page and things of that sort. So I'm really excited about just the openness as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Vasquez. Councilor Vasquez.
Oh, sorry about that. I was on mute. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mayor and Attorney Vega Brown. Yes, I wholly agree. We need a police auditor in addition to a robust citizens review board. And for those two to work together, I think would be ideal. I definitely see a role in a citizens review board having an annual review or a quarterly review of the police audits that council gets, and perhaps even provide written recommendations or written comments on that audit to council so that we can perhaps be looking at that police audit, not just independently as councilors, but with the input and comments from a police review board. I think that would be very helpful. The other part is around the firms themselves. I know the last firm that we selected was, if I'm not mistaken, primarily staffed by former police department administrative staff, and wondering if, as far as we know, there's police auditors out there who are not former police or law enforcement. If we're going to be expecting to have firms that aren't from former law enforcement officers to apply for this.
Mayor and Council, I as far as expectation, I don't know, because we have preferred the certifications. It doesn't require that you are a former law enforcement. Those types of certifications are not. It's not required. So I really couldn't tell you who's going to submit.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get certainly into the RFP process and the selection criteria for that, but I think it would give our residents perhaps more comfort knowing that it was not former police officers auditing other police officers. Just as a comment that I heard from some members of the public in the past, myself included, I feel more comfortable knowing that it's not folks, but again, don't want to get into the RFP process in that way that artificially, taints the process, I guess. And then another question I have is regarding the data collection from the auditor to the department itself. When the auditor is soliciting information from the police department or from internal affairs, what guarantees or what checkpoints are there that ensures that the auditor is getting both the correct and the complete information from the police department? Is there any accountability measure in that process?
Mayor and Council, as far as an accountability measure, that's a difficult thing to say because the information is held by the police department. I think we can hope that the information is going to be accurate. I mean, a lot of it there is public information that we can use for comparison. I mean, the police department is required to report to the federal government and state government. And so there can always be that kind of check to make sure that the information is accurate. And I'll defer to the police department on their required reporting, but there are some mechanisms that we can check.
Thank you, Jennifer. I definitely would. That'd be maybe a question for potential applicants in terms of how they ensure the quality and timeliness and accuracy of information that they receive from other police departments or other clients, to see what kind of processes they have in place. As you said, Jennifer, just to make sure that we are getting getting up-to-date information, the same information that the police department perhaps has available publicly, and that we get that during our reporting back to council. I think that'd be an important aspect of this firm to take on and to have experience doing. And I think with that, those are all my questions and comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bencomo.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation. Can you sort of help walk me through what this will look like? So that once the RFP is completed, you post it where, and then how, generally, how do applicants find out about this?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will defer to Alex for that question, but generally what will happen next is that the Selection Advisory Committee will convene again to talk about any necessary changes, but I'll defer to Alex.
Thank you for the question. This, for the record, this is Chenyu Alex Leo with Purchasing section. Yes, the Selection Advisory Committee will meet multiple times before the RFP was posted. So to finalize the RFP. When the draft RFP was finalized, we'll post on several media. For example, we'll post on a BitNet, which is the audience is the whole country. Every police auditor throughout the whole country can bid on the project. And also we're gonna post on local newspaper as well, so that any local vendors that are interested can bid on this project. And we're gonna give enough time for the vendors to respond and draft the response to the IFP. When all the response is submitted, we will bring all the formal proposals back to the Selection Advisory Committee to evaluate. If the scoring plus all the preferences for local vendors is close, we'll go into interview section. So we can ask additional questions for any specific question that we need answer for. After the interviews, we'll add all the scores together and we'll recommend the highest scoring vendor or multiple vendor and recommend for award for the council.
Thank you, Alex. And who sits on that selection committee? Is it staff?
The staff, and for this one, every procurement selection advisory is unique. It was appointed by the user department, also by the city administration. For this selection advisory committee, it has internal staff from different departments and also external staff, like Jennifer mentioned, Donna County Police, State Police, City of El Paso internal auditors. So they can bring their expertise together with our own staff from different departments.
Okay. And then, Jennifer, this question might be for you. I don't know if you're still there, but thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
The other oversight committee you mentioned, that's a citywide oversight committee, right?
Yes, Counselor. And I turned off my video because the last time you told me to do that because it sounded better. It actually worked. So I hope it's working a little bit better. Okay. Yeah. Yes, that oversight committee is new. We haven't filled it yet, and we were waiting. We had some turnover with our internal audit, and so I was waiting to fill that with the city manager. We had talked the previous city manager. We talked about it before, but we went ahead and just advertised it. So that is a new committee. It is citywide. It's open to anybody within the city limits. If it's necessary to open it countywide, we can come back and let you know that. But we'll wait and see what we get.
No, sorry, I meant more like oversight for city, the institution, city, right? Like department. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. It's not just like oversight for LCPD for a specific department. It is like the entire city.
That's correct. It is oversight for the entire city and every audit function, and it'll oversee the activities of the internal audit department and the inspector general when that position is filled, and also make recommendations citywide.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Back to the selection committee though, I'm concerned that that if it's us, also other law enforcement entities choosing an auditor, that there's already bias built into the process.
Mayor and council, as far as the selection advisory committee, we have outside, you have to remember that we have to be very careful. And again, I'll defer to Alex on this, but we have to follow our procurement code. The code requires specific individuals who can be on the selection advisory. It's tailored to be for specialists in the area, so content specialists. As far as bias goes, there's a scoring. I don't know what your concerns are. If you could be a little more specific, but the outside entities are hopefully what is assisting with that, and that they're offering an unbiased, very unbiased oversight of it.
Right. And yes, I mean, we hope that that's what it is, right? Like that would be the ethical agency to choose. And then for them to act ethically. But I think I hear, and just echoing what Councilor Vasquez says, right? When a lot of these auditors are former police, I think I think that gives a lot of pause to a lot of community members in terms of trust in the process.
If I can just jump in real quick, and I can appreciate what you're saying, Councilor Bencomo, but like right now, take for example, we're looking for a city manager, and we're looking for managers who have experience. And I could validate your concern if we were taking them from here locally, but you've got them from other parts. Who knows where they're from? I don't know where they're from, but usually they're from back east. Even if they're from back east, they don't know these officers. They don't have that connection. But they do have that background to know how things are supposed to work and how they should be working, and bring best practices with them. In fact, I would think that if I was a business like theirs, they want to make sure that they find things, clean it up, because that's the best recommendation they have for their business to grow. If they start doing a bad job and things still mess up, they're going to say, what company did you use? I mean, they're worthless. They're not doing a good job. And so, and I think it's fair to say that is really what you're looking for. You're looking for someone who knows what to look for, knows how to fix the problem, and has really no connection to anyone here locally. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
My concern is not bias because I know someone. That's not the concern I have. My concern is that there is a widespread protection across this country. Now, mistrust with policing isn't something unique to Las Cruces, right? This is happening all over the country. And I mean, I'll just come out and say it, right? My concern is that there is a widespread protection of law enforcement officers by other law enforcement officers.
Mayor and council, let me address that just if I can. When you're talking about auditors, and Viola Perea can speak to this, so any auditor is a member of a professional organization, and those licenses and certifications are extremely important for any auditor. Any auditor, including our external auditors, any professional auditor is going to have to maintain neutrality and to be unbiased. To say that anybody's going to be biased toward a particular department, the check and balance in that is that if you have a certain number of complaints and certain types of complaints, you can't hide that. That's just reporting of data. And so, for example, if you have a number of use of force complaints for a particular area, that's just statistical data. It's not an interpretation of that data, because what auditors do is report the facts. And the facts are, you have X number in this area. This could be the problem, and then they look at the problem, but you can't hide the data. That's why it's so important to add those demographics into the audit, because you can't really, it leaves very little to interpretation when you just have it all mapped out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's actually an excellent point. You know, I think for me, an audit, and I'm just finishing one in my own private job, but I think an audit really is for the purpose of finding your gaps, right? Finding your weaknesses, patterns, like you said, trends and patterns, so that you can correct them, so that ultimately at the end of the day, your work can be better, it can be stronger. And I'm by no means, right, saying that an audit, like, I don't want this I don't want it to come off like I'm saying an audit should lead to punitive outcomes, because I don't think that's going to serve anybody. I think the audit, an intense, comprehensive audit, can lead to actually a better working police force that has the trust of community members, right? That there's communication that's flowing both ways in terms of how they operate. That's ultimately what I would love to see come out of this, right? And I think that that's a long-term process for sure. I will say that in my, I've been doing some research on this, on just police audits in general. And there are several nonprofit organizations that are researchers that have been researching racial bias in conjunction, a bunch of bias in conjunction with policing, and the outcomes that has had historically in this country. Something I came across that I don't know, Jennifer, if this would be this is why I was asking about the RFP process, because I came across an organization that was highly recommended by some colleagues in another state called the Center for Policing Equity. Highly recommend that folks look into that, and that this is an organization that we reach out to. I think their goal is to build strong law enforcement partnerships and then pull in stakeholders in our community so that we can, pinpoint what those inequities are. And the Center for Policing Equity is all about research and analyzing it, and then being able to provide actionable steps that can better whatever situation is happening in a community. So for me, that's something I would like to see, Jennifer, is how, honestly, it's exactly what you said. How are they looking at data and then providing actionable steps to the city council, to the department, so that we can move in a direction of rebuilding, frankly, what public safety looks like, what policing looks like, and then I think consequently rebuilding trust within our communities.
Thank you, Counselor and Mayor. Also, one of the things that when we look at our audit function, if you look at our regular external audit or any kind of financial audit that we have, what the auditor does, they review data and information, a lot of documents. They find, like you said, they find the gaps, they find the problems, and they may make a recommendation you have to improve your internal control. Once that happens, we leave it up to our internal audit and our own departments to start identifying ways to address the lack of internal control. That's why we have internal audit. It may be that this is a 2 or 3 or 4 stage process, because what we need is good data collection so that we can identify those gaps. And once we have that, it may mean that we need to go now to a different type of consultant to help us figure out how to fix the gaps. But I think at this stage, just knowing where they are is the most important thing, because I don't think we have a clear picture of where those gaps exist. And so I think we should look at it in a prospectively from a very wide lens. This may have to be several different steps.
Yeah, I think that's I think you're totally right, Jennifer. I don't even think it's a maybe. I think it definitely will be several different steps, and I just want us to make sure that we're looking at this very holistically. And so that's why I'm suggesting an organization like the Center for Policing Equity, because I think at whatever step that might be, it's important to bring folks that have been studying all of this for a long time that can provide. We've all had conversations about reform publicly, and I think if that's the direction we're moving into, I want us to have all the information and data and diagnoses so that we can move forward with something that makes sense for our communities. I'm also a deep believer that throughout this process, how many ever steps that might be, that one of them needs to be the creation of a citizen review committee as well, in conjunction with this auditor and whatever other consultants related to this issue might be able to provide for us. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looks like Councillor Flores is next. Oh, wait, before we begin, David Maestas, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I did. I had one previously too, so if it's okay, Mayor, if you will indulge me, I'll try to answer both of them just for clarification. Hopefully this will help Councillor Bencomo. This is David Maestas, Interim City Manager, with her question specific to the Selection Advisory Committee. Councillor Bencomo, when the committee reviews the RFPs, they review it based on those measures that Jennifer talked about, based on the parameters that we're asking for and the demographics and items that we want to see as part of the audits that they turn in. So the committee doesn't necessarily rate on the type of firm that they are, but rather their ability to perform those deliverables that we ask for and the experience that they have providing that information. So thank you for that, Mayor. The other one, I wanted to just clarify real quick, when we were talking about trends, the police department does publish their IA report, and in that you do see trends. However, when we're talking about not having a baseline for trends right now, the ones we're talking about are the additional demographics that Jennifer has pointed out. And those we feel are critical to help us with the analyzing of what the audit report tells us, to know that we can look at things more specifically and more in depth and help us to better work on areas that we might need to, but also see areas where we are doing okay. And that way we can separate the two out and really focus on the areas that we need to. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, David. Okay, so Councillor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. And thank you. Wait a minute, this is not going. This is nuts. And thank you also. I like to thank my colleagues. I have a question for the attorney, Vega Brown. When you started this, you said that we passed an ordinance about 1.5 years ago, and you went through a couple of, there were 3 things that were in that ordinance. One, you mentioned Inspector General, you mentioned an oversight committee, and what was the third one? The auditor? I can't hear.
Mayor and council, yes, we already had a city auditor at the time. We have an interim right now, but what it allows for is more independence of the audit function. So it requires more independence, which is one of the recommendations. It's a best practice model. In our subsequent external audits, they had suggested that there'd be more independence, and that was written into the ordinance.
Councillor Flores, you are muted.
I'm sorry. So you also said that the auditor would be looking at an incident report in detail and then look at a policy and then track the trend. Whose policy exactly would they be looking at, and why is it important to track the trend?
Mayor and Council, the police audit will look at the complaints and the investigations that are conducted by our IA division. So they're going to look at our complaint process and the investigation of those complaints to make sure that those complaints were adequately reported, investigated, and then they're going to look at if there's a problem. I don't know, I'm trying to think of a specific example. If you have a use of force incident and that incident is investigated and they can identify a problem and because of our policy. It may be that we need to adjust our policy to prevent that type of action from occurring in the future, or amend our policy, or create. It may be that an incident occurs and we don't have a policy to address that, so we need to address it. So they will identify those types of situations.
So the policy, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, I'm having a horrible audio problem. So the policy would be set by whom?
They would review our own internal policy, our police department policy and city policy.
Oh, so they'd be reviewing the policy that the police department has?
Yes, they would try to identify any problems or lapses in policy or deficiencies in policy. Yes.
Okay, and then it would be submitted to the police department, the audit, or would it be to our city manager?
The reporting is going to occur at least biannually to the city council, an entire report of what's been occurring. However, after 30 days of reviewing a complaint, we will receive a report. So the police department will receive it, the city manager will receive it, the internal audit will receive it, city attorney's office will receive it, the oversight committee will receive it.
So, let me see. And tracking the trend. Who would be tracking it? It would be the auditors, or would it be the LCPD or the people reading the report, and then what would we do with that? I mean, what would it be an indication that the policy isn't working? Or there isn't a policy that really addresses the issue of the reoccurring problems?
Mayor and Council, it's not that they would be tracking a trend, it's that they will be keeping or providing us data so that we can identify any positive trend. If they identify a trend, it may be that one type of complaint that keeps coming up over and over.
Yeah, if you guys can mute your phones, please, if you're not talking.
So if there's a particular type of incident that keeps occurring over and over again, or more than once, we would be alerted to that because we'll have that data, we'll have that information, and then we can identify: is this a training issue? What is the issue? Is it a policy issue? Is it that we don't have a policy on this particular issue? It could be any number of things, but the important part is that they will identify the data and provide us the data. If they can track it, if they can identify any trends, that's part of it. But we also have to look at the data and evaluate the data.
Councilor Flotis, you're muted.
I apologize. for having to ask this question again. But to whom are the auditors reporting? Just the LCPD, correct? Never mind. You know what, Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry, this isn't working.
Okay, so let me go to Councillor Beta Stuvey.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
I'm going to have to log off, and then we're going to try to get back on.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Beta Stuvey?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Jennifer. Most of my questions have been answered. And I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem for her questions. Many of mine were very similar. But I did have a question regards to the audit previously done. And if we, in this new process, will be looking back at any findings or recommendations from that audit and to see if we had achieved those recommendations moving forward.
Mayor and Council, we will look at that. As I think that's an important part of us moving forward, is to evaluate what's already been done. I think one of the deficiencies was that we didn't have a lot of use data, and so it might be limited. But yes, I think that that's an important place for us to begin, is to look and see if there was anything identified that we should have changed and didn't, or there was a deficiency and we didn't identify it. Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bencomo, did you have a follow-up question, or did you forget to put your hand down?
No, I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Thank you. This is Councilor Bencomo. Jennifer, did I hear you? So I was hearing you list out, it was just hard to hear because of the echoing for Councilor Flores. But did I hear you, when I heard you list out the folks who would be receiving the audits, I didn't hear the council, but did you say city council?
Yes, Mayor and Council, the 30-day, so once a complaint is received, they'll have 30 days to report it right back. That means, right back to the LCPD, let's see, the city manager, the city attorney, our internal audit. And then the city council is going to get reports. So you're going to have semi-annual, but we're also going to have more frequent reports because the oversight committee is required to report to the city council also. And so that's why it was important for us to put that in the RFP, because that's a more regular reporting to the council.
Gotcha. So we're essentially looking for one big audit, right? Like one big swoop to sort of map out where we're at. And then after that, it's quarterly reporting.
At least, yes.
At least. Okay. Okay. And then how much of that is public information? Those findings.
Once the oversight committee approves an audit or they don't ever, I hate to use the word approves, but they have to authorize the audit. So the oversight committee can't change an audit, but they can add comments to it. They can say, well, we don't think it was good enough in this area, or they can make comments. Once that's done, it's public.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I think that concludes this portion of the police auditor RFP. I appreciate everyone's information and presentation. And so we're going to go to, Chief Gallagher, did you have a comment?
Yes, sir, just quick. Patrick Gallagher, Las Cruces Police Chief. I know everybody was talking about the 2009 report. I wanted to draw everyone's attention to an analysis of the Las Cruces Police Department that was done in 2016. I think it's available online still. That's where I found it. It's by the Center for Public Safety Management, and they audited all types of parts of the police department, including the internal affairs process as well. Something you all might want to take a look at.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Welcome.
Okay, so with that, we're going to go to item 1.3, which is the 2018 GeoBond Park and Sports Field Improvements and Additions, East Mesa Public Recreation Complex Master Plan Update. Looks like Mr. David Cedillo and Tony Trevino will be making that presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. This is Tony Trevino, the Interim Deputy Director of Public Works.
And as you just mentioned, yes, we are here to go over the East Mesa Public Recreational Sports Complex, which is part of the 2018 GEO bond. At this point in time, we're here to present the master plan for its entire build out. However, we'll come back and depict of what's going to be part of the first phase with the improvements that are to be included with the GEO bond, which is a 10-acre park, the baseball complex, soccer, football fields, and 8 pickleball courts. So you'll see that in the presentation. Below that, I also want to mention we have had 5 public meetings at this point with stakeholders, sports teams, and the public. And we did have our first virtual meeting here, and that was a great success. We had over 24,000 views on this virtual meeting and over 126 comments. So it was great. It was the first time doing that. So I was happy to get all the comments from the public and be able to address them. With the project, we have Wilson & Company and Site Southwest doing the design for the project. Mr. George Ranovich is here with Site Southwest. He's going to be giving the presentation. So, George, are you there? I can see your.
All right, can everyone see the presentation?
We can. If we could have everyone put their computers on mute if you're not speaking, that would be great, please.
And we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, Mayor. So thank you for having us, Mr. Mayor and councilors. As Tony said, this is a presentation for the East Mesa